The Emancipation of Mr. Frog. A Smilin' Friends fanfiction readin'. Written and narrated by Precious Piece of Cheese. This fic is based off of Season 3, Episode 2 of Smilin' Friends, so please watch that episode before listening to this story to get the full context. The link to the original fic is linked in the description. It's lonely at the top, is what everyone always warned him about, but Mr. Frog didn't realize the weight of that assumption until he sat in that space and stared back at his own reflection in the pond. He never felt alone at the top in the whole span of time in which he occupied it, until the harsh weathers of reality finally caught up to him. He never thought he'd end up like this, single-handedly the most powerful mortal on the planet, but also intimately powerless in ways beyond his control. Polarizing cognitive dissonance aside, he was simply afraid. He was infallible, so why was he so broken? He spent his whole life acting upon his own fleeting whimsies and selfish desires, plowing over anyone that dared to block his path of legacy, that he forgot what was important to him. He knew his stubborn and spiteful nature helped him achieve everything he accomplished, but it also blinded him to anything that really mattered. He spent years suppressing his consciousness and emotions to prevent him from absorbing the full breadth of the consequences of his actions. Maybe it was because of his crack addiction, but it felt like he was living in a daze for years, and only now was he being pulled out of it. Not even to mention the loss of purpose from achieving everything he wanted. This new emotion was so much more crippling than anything he could have imagined. It felt unnatural being in this position. He wasn't meant to be like this. How could it be like this after everything he had accomplished? The sounds of crickets and birds were the only other noises that cut through the suppressing thoughts in his mind. He didn't even know what he was feeling. Perhaps a deadly mixture of anger, regret, shock, and despair? He hadn't felt any of those things in so long. When was the last time he had a genuine emotion? Long before he ended up where he was. They say that Hollywood kills people's souls, and Mr. Frog could testify that. He didn't understand how dead inside he truly was until he was forced back into feeling everything all at once, and he realized that he truly felt nothing towards everything he had. He literally had everything one could want: fame, fortune, power, all of it. He was indestructible to the laws of physics and society, but he was still loved by everyone for some reason. He didn't know why the people of the world loved him so much, but everything was always handed to him without him deserving an ounce of it. He could be loved by every person on earth, but without the love of the only people that mattered, it meant nothing at all. He wept once more upon recounting his father's words. It wasn't just his father, but his late mother, too. He honestly felt more grief for her than him, because nothing in his power could bring her back to her boy. He always loved his mother. The thought of her dying alone with her unfulfilled wish of seeing him again crushed him like nothing else ever could do. What angered him spectacularly was that he didn't know until it was far too late. His father never called to break this news. He never knew. Why was he kept in the dark? Sure, he and his father had a shakier relationship than he and his mother, but not telling him that she was dying? He couldn't comprehend that. Would he have returned home to see her in her final hours? Yes. That would remain his deepest regret of his life moving forward. It felt like a cruel joke, like God was waiting for the right moment to fuck him over and watch him wither in delight. He couldn't understand why this happened at all, especially when he was trying to do a good deed and make amends with his family. Turns out, he just made it worse. He wanted to believe that his mother died with some love in her heart for him instead of total disdain like his father. He needed to hold out hope that he was still her special little boy in another plane of existence. Just when he felt like he left the past behind, sitting at the table with his father in his childhood home yanked him back to the waters that he'd swore to never tread in again. He felt like a tadpole being yelled at over failing a math test by his father again. He felt small for the first time in his adult life, and that was profoundly terrifying. He thought he'd have evolved past that feeling, but it returned like a malevolent ghost. Anxiety jolted through him upon remembrance. He felt small right now, too. He simply never be able to rebuild his ego or life to the old glory that he once occupied. His father killed him. That old Mr. Frog was buried 6 feet under by a hand that brought him into this world. With nothing left to achieve and nobody left to love him, what was he? What meaning could he extract from a life that had none to begin with? Did any of this have meaning beyond his vapid desires? What did his life's work even mean to him if his only motivation to succeed was to simply prove that he could? He carefully crafted his life to feel like a statue erected in gold, but now he felt like a sand particle in the Sahara Desert. He pursued power and glory to never feel small again, but he was sent back to the start with one phrase: I have no son. He was nothing. Nothing he did meant anything to the one person who should have cared all along. He could be everything to everyone in the world, but he was nobody's son, and it was like he was never there. Once his existential thoughts subsided, the silence deafened. Nature was the only company in his presence, so he sat. He purposefully never gave himself opportunities to be alone with his thoughts, but that was all he could do now. With nothing left, he did nothing. The world in his mind stopped, but the one in front of his eyes kept moving without him. He was nothing to the little critters and bugs that flew about him. He felt so in control of the world at large, but it still moved on without him. The universe didn't care if he lived or died, physically or metaphorically. Was he even still alive? Mr. Frog was dead, so what did that leave him with? Who was he? Who was he without his name, his title, his status, his money, his legacy, and his family? If everything in his life held no meaning, then it ended. He felt a distinct pit in his stomach the moment he acknowledged his loss of true identity. He was simply nothing now but the husk of his physical body and whatever was left of his psyche. He adjusted his sitting position to a cross-legged pose, only to test if he was still physically alive. He fully expected the weight of the loss of his life and ego to give him a physical reaction that would surely kill him. But there he was, with his heart beating, as it always had been. What followed was a sensation not of fear or dread, but an overwhelming sense of peace. He was nothing to nobody, so why was he okay with that now that the storm had calmed? He spent his whole life building a reputation of power and grandeur to impress and frighten everyone, but without the desire to maintain that expectation. He simply could be. He always felt the drive or anxiety to be something, but with that washed away, he felt good. He had nothing to prove, no one to impress, not even himself, and nothing worldly left to achieve or desire. He simply existed now. And that was a fate more beautiful than anything he could have imagined. With that nestled in his mind, he surrendered himself to the world. As if a third eye was manually drilled into his forehead, his surroundings felt richer and more lush than anything he had ever saw before, and his body felt completely weightless. He was nobody, and that was beautiful. He was one with the world and the universe, soaking in a tingly sensation that coursed through him. He wasn't sure if he was physically dying or not, but he embraced whatever it was. Feeling his eyelids surrender to the weight of themselves, he let go of his last inhibition and allowed them to shut. With that last tie to his old self abandoned, Mr. Frog's ego died. This was the first time he felt fully present in his body and within time and space. He smiled. He was finally free, and the dawn was upon him. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for listening through this entire story. So when I originally wrote this, I wrote it in 2 hours in like the middle of the night in like one sitting. I read through it once, barely edited it, and just posted it to AO3. And this time that I'm recording this video is the first time I'm reading this out loud, so that's fun. But yeah, this was a very quick, emotionally charged thing that I wanted to write because episode 2 of season 3, oh my god, that messed me up so bad, but like in a good way because we now have canon Mr. Frog angst, and I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah, because Mr. Frog is one of my favorite characters, and this was just so unexpected that we get to have this type of character development for him that I'm like, oh my god, we have to write something about this. So what this fic basically is his my interpretation of his inner reflection from when he is sitting on the lily pad in the forest, like right after the scene with his father. Yeah, that's what this is. And I mean, I like it, and hopefully you guys did. It's just a very short, quick thing that I did, and I kind of like it for what it is. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.